like I think one of the most important things you said in terms of alpha right there, so it was get in early when the projects are launched. You don't need to be as correct about the pairing as you do when there's a high TVL, right? So I think the upside there is pretty dramatic. But welcome back, everybody, to another episode of WAGME TV. We have a special one for you all today. We're following up on Aerodrome, ticker AERO. We're going to talk technical analysis on the charts as well as some price targets, and then dive actually deep into some of the liquidity pool details and get you guys some more information on what might be some interesting pools to potentially get some farming activity on. So we're going to have some good alpha today. Excited to dive into it. Again, just a reminder, note, this is not financial advice, right? Definitely do your own research for entertainment purposes only. We just love sharing this information with you guys. But just wanted to clear the air on that and get things started. So over to you, Mata, to kick us off with some TA.
Yeah, let's dive into this really quickly. So I have the AERO chart up here. So it has been a little bit bloody as of late. One thing we did notice is that we're coming into some pretty heavy support. So this zone right here is going to be pretty good support for Aerodrome here moving forward. I think the big thing to talk through here is really AERO is going to do as well as Bitcoin does, right? So if Bitcoin's not doing well, AERO is going to suffer along with all the rest of the altcoins in the market, right? But if Bitcoin can catch a bid, right, we could see this do some pretty awesome work. So again, could be a good time to continue to accumulate, especially if it dips into these ranges here. It looks like it's between 64 to 67-ish and about 87 cents. So, of course, what we were looking for the other couple weeks were some of the other support and resistance lines. So coming out with a couple of those here above. What we also have are some of the trend lines that we were tracking previously. Obviously, we talked about it on this channel as we broke down on this trend line, actually retested it and continued down, which is typical of what you see on a breakdown. The thing that makes me a little bit nervous is that we had this other secondary trend line after we hit that key level right around that 88, 87 cent mark. That it looks like we've just broken down on that portion as well. So we could potentially see a retest here and then down into this level. But again, this is going to be some pretty good support for us. So really hoping that Bitcoin catches a bid and we can see this thing really shoot off for us. The only other thing that I noticed is if you actually go into the Fibonacci levels, which Garcia actually likes to look at a lot, typically in nature, you're going to see specific retraces. So what's interesting is right now we're holding on pretty sharply to this 382 Fibonacci level, which is a very, very common retrace off of the all-time highs that we saw, I guess, with this asset just in April of 2024. So that's definitely something that we're looking at. I think, again, it's all going to come down to Bitcoin, and it's always going to be a good time to accumulate down in these ranges because we could see this thing do some really awesome stuff. Should we pop off, right? I mean, we're going to at least go up and retest some of these resistance levels that we ran into, as well as this trend line up here. So again, we will hopefully see in those $2 ranges and above relatively soon, hopefully. For right now, really, we're targeting this range to continue to accumulate as time goes on. But I know we were going to talk about some of the emissions structures and everything like that, but wanted to give you guys kind of a brief look into what we're seeing from a technical analysis perspective. Of course, this is all probabilities, so anything can happen in the charts. So just keep that in mind, especially with something that's so new.
Yeah, appreciate that, Mata. Let's jump into the emissions for Epoch or week 37. So that actually finished up on the 9th of May. So for us about 4 days ago, and we'll see Epoch 38 finish up on the 16th of May. But here on Epoch 37, we saw AERO and USDC accumulate the most emissions. So they almost had around 2 million emissions. And obviously, this is one that a lot of VE AERO holders are going to vote for because it's creating a lot of great liquidity for the AERO token. And really what you're looking for, if you're looking for some of the best liquidity providing results, is you want to see pools that have high emissions, while there are also low TVLs. So you can see some of these smaller token like Wells or TKN token. Those are almost $500,000 or $750,000 in emissions this epoch, while having under a $10 million pool TVL. So yeah, those are some great returns, and you see that in the APR here. But some of the other pools I wanted to highlight was the top slipstream pool. So right here you see wrapped ETH USDC. That got about 500,000 in emissions this week. So some pretty solid APR in that pool. And then what I also wanted to highlight here was the top stablecoin pool. And so this is, going to have a lower APR because it is less impermanent loss happening in these pools. And so, yeah, they were able to accumulate just under $500,000 in emissions, which leads to a APR of around 30%. And really, there's a lot of pools that Inverse Finance has, which they're the second largest VE AERO holder within the platform. There's a lot of pools that they're providing their AERO to or locking it in and voting for, and those pools are having great results. And then the one ETH to ETH pool I wanted to point out was the Coinbase ETH to wrapped ETH pool. So here you saw, not as many emissions, just above $60,000 in emissions, but still great APR. And, we're seeing this APR because while it is smaller emissions, there's smaller TVL in this pool as well, just under $9 million in this TVL. So as you go through this, you see a lot of tokens that you might not recognize as, some of the top performers in APR here. And what we want to do next is really talk about some of the new tokens, like these tokens that were launched this week, which I'll pass it over to Zoe to go through those projects.
Yeah, that's a great overview of Epoch 37, what's going on in the pools. A couple of things I wanted to say before we move on from that. Some of the pools that Ev highlighted, like you just think about it logically, and it like makes a lot of sense why those are kind of the best pools to be in, right? Aerodrome, obviously, they want to incentivize their token, and they're also the biggest holders of their own token, so it's very easy for them to incentivize and vote for their own pools with locked AERO. Coinbase, as we've mentioned before, and one of the reasons why we're super bullish on the project, Coinbase is an investor in Aerodrome, so most likely they have locked their AERO as well, and they're using that to incentivize the CB ETH pool, right? So makes a ton of sense why that one is getting really good APYs on ETH. The other ones like just Dola, as Evan mentioned, Inverse Finance, one of the largest holders of AERO, and they're voting for their own pools. And then of course wrapped ETH and USDC, the most common pair and like the one with the highest trading volume. So obviously incentivizing that for liquidity makes a ton of sense. So just providing a little bit of color as to the why of these pools aren't standing out really by accident. In my opinion, like there's concrete reasons why those are kind of the most attractive opportunities right now. So switching gears a little bit into a little bit of follow up from last week, we had discussed how really the value of the Aerodrome ecosystem comes from new projects being involved, purchasing AERO on the market and locking it up to incentivize their pools. So this tweet came out just last week, and so we actually see, last week I believe we had 27 projects who were involved in the Aerodrome ecosystem. Obviously, we're incentivizing using the AERO token and things like that. This week, we have a few more projects to report that have joined the Aerodrome ecosystem. So if you're curious about like the why on the tokenomics and like why this actually accrues value to AERO, I'd encourage you guys to just go back and watch last week's video that we put out. But bottom line, TLDR on this is it's very encouraging to see more and more projects getting involved here. These are also areas to look for if you're looking for alpha on pools to farm, right? Because these new pools that get spun up, if you're able to get into them early, that's when they have like the highest APR and where you can get a lot of like the highest rewards before other people catch on. So these projects right here, we have Dose Token, Flatcoin Mat, RGUSD, USD3, and 0x Flat Money. These are ones to be looking out for new pools in the coming week to 2 weeks that are going to come online and likely have pretty high APRs right off the bat. So that's pretty much everything from my end. Curious kind of what you guys think of that before we wrap up.
Starting to show just how important almost like this liquidity provider forward model is that Aerodrome has. Because I mean, a lot of projects are now coming because there's so many liquidity providers that want to get involved. And at the same time, obviously, I think one of the most important things you said in terms of alpha right there, so it was get in early when the projects are launched. You don't need to be as correct about the pairing as you do when there's a high TVL, right? So I think the upside there is pretty dramatic, but I think I just wanted to call out those 2 points. Well, hey everybody, thank you guys for tuning in. We're trying to give you the alpha immediately as we have it, and give you guys as much detail and updates on Aerodrome as we can. Definitely like, comment, subscribe. We've been reading the comments and kind of making sure that we're tailoring some of the content to what you guys want to see. So make sure to keep dropping those and keep providing some feedback. And again, not financial advice. Do your own research, but hopefully you guys found this insightful. But until next week, WAGB.